You're listening to the Master Passive Income Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Passive Income Life Podcast. I'm Zach Zimmer. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about scaling from 0 to 100 properties, right? So buckle in. This is going to be a good one.
What you going to do?
Welcome to the Passive Income Life Show, where we guide you to a seven-figure income with a special focus on making passive income so you can live the dream life. And now, here's your host, Zach Zimmer.
What you going to? What you going to?
Hey, so excited to be a part of Master Passive Income. This is getting released out to all of your followers. So excited to be here with a big audience and let you guys know what this is all about. Dustin has asked me, to be part of this podcast network, and he's going to share my story and what I'm teaching over here to you guys all. So excited for this. Hope you enjoy it as we talk about investing and fixing that, right? Going to 100 properties, how to scale, how to grow your business so that is this huge snowball that can't be stopped, right? All right, so let's get into it. All right, so the Passive Income Life Podcast, right? What I'm about is for the target person who already has some properties, right? Probably already has at least 10 properties. They know how to do a lot of these things. They're familiar with areas, they're familiar with financing, they're familiar with, how to manage their properties or how to find the right property management companies. And this is about the next levels, right? Growing to 100 properties, getting involved in private equity, getting involved in promissory notes and ATM machines and in exotic investments and the pros and cons of those types of investments, right? Because there are cons to some of these things that we think are so sexy, like private equity or ATMs or promissory notes. But going through my experiences, both good and bad in all those different areas, and primarily what I'm coming more and more back to is my bread and butter of owning direct owned real estate. And so today, what we're going to talk about really is how I scaled, how to scale from 5, 10 properties to 100 or more, right? What are the systems, the tactics, the thinking, the models? What does that all need to look like? And what are the ideas that get you there and get you there efficiently, get you there while maintaining your time? Because I'm all about time, right? The passive income life, controlling and owning your time. Because what good is owning 100 rental properties if you spend 40 hours a week? Even 20 hours a week, right? You're still spending your precious time managing them, showing them, dealing with tenant issues. So we're going to talk through obviously a condensed version today of the things you need to do, the things you need to think, the things you need to take action on to grow this business to a level that really becomes unstoppable. And, what we're going to start with is first the mindset, right? The mindset of an advanced investor. Now, I love to refer to Keanu Reeves in the movie The Matrix, right? And I think I'm the first one that came up with it, but maybe not. I don't want to take credit if somebody else did. But in that movie, right, it's about these people who unknowingly are just part of a machine, right? A machine world, and they are just cogs, right? They're food for these machines. And he is given the opportunity to take the red pill or the blue pill. And the red pill opens up his mind and awakes him to this matrix he's living in. Whereas the blue pill will put him back to sleep. He'll wake up never knowing any difference. It's like in Men in Black. Remember when they would flash the guys in their face after they had seen aliens and they would never remember what happened and what they saw. Right. So it's very similar to that. And I love that term of taking the red pill, because your mind becomes awakened to the difference or the issues with what we've been taught around working the healthiest 30 plus years of our lives, around going and getting these degrees to learn how to work for other people and hope that we build a nest egg and hope that our health holds out for us to live the last 20, 30 years of our life. And, the two big instances that affected me mostly were both with my father and my father-in-law, who both lived that life. And right as I'm starting to kind of understand real estate and rich dad, poor dad, they both retired and both of their health fell off a cliff. They are still with us today, but they are not doing the things that they envisioned in their golden years would be like because their health is both very bad. And so those things hit me at the right time. Unfortunately, it hit me and just said, yep, there's got to be a different way, right? So an advanced investor thinks that way. They know they want to get out of selling their time as fast as possible. And they recognize that real estate is really proven the most effective way to get you to financial independence. And it's not to say that starting a business is not. It is it can be very profitable. But I think you would see kind of the opinions are that definitely starting businesses very risky. There's a very, very high percentage that don't last 3 years, 4 years. I've owned different businesses, trampoline parks, got involved in bowling alleys, and they are ups and downs, and it's managing employees. And then COVID happens and you can't keep your doors open. And these types of active businesses, they can provide cash flow, but they are definitely ups and downs to running businesses. So I think what you'd see the most proven thing in getting to financial independence is really owning cash flowing assets, particularly assets that you can put your money into and get your money back out of and still control the cash flow, right? Arbitrage, right? That's the main reason we do real estate is because of arbitrage, right? And not just we're recognizing real estate can do this for us, but we know the right kinds of real estate. Again, being an advanced investor, you know the types of assets, the locations, the caliber of the area, the different markets that fit you, right? Some could be great cash flow, but you don't want to own D properties, right? Inner city D properties. Yes, they're going to 20% plus cash flow, but you don't want to deal with that type of turnover, that type of income, how they're getting their income, and that type of tenant quality. So the areas you want to own, the markets, the types of properties, and the tenant quality you're after. You also recognize that you got to keep the money moving. And so you figure out the types of properties to keep your money moving in and out of that property, right? I think you'll hear, or I've talked about that leaving your money in a house, right? Having 100% equity, that's not really a good use of your money. Home equity is a pretty bad investment. You're saying, Mr. Bank, hey, I'm going to give you my money, or I'm going to leave my money in this house. I've given you my money, and if I ever want it back, I have to ask nicely. You have to approve me. And you get to dictate the terms, the interest rates, the fees, how I have to pay you back. That's your money. So that's where getting your money in, getting your money out, using the right types of leverage, right, to control the asset while not having any money or very little money left in the game. And that's what I talk about. I just did a podcast episode about burring a portfolio at once, right? A package of 4 houses that I bought over the year, and how great that process looks. And that's what I've been doing really my whole tenure, as I went from 0 to over 70 single family homes before I started to pull back and go into private equity, which, if you listen to my stories, you'll see I probably wish that I would have just kept going up into 100 plus single families. But I have learned a lot of things in private equity, and I have made low effort income. But there's a lot of challenges that we won't get into in this podcast, but you can hear on my others of what private equity can do and how challenging it can become. But the key is to keeping the money moving, right? In, out, control the asset, buy more. You also recognize as an advanced investor that all these streams have to be efficient, removing waste. And I was very fortunate that I spent years in the W-2 world in Lean Six Sigma, right? Learning all the ways to understand, see waste, how to remove it from processes, how to remove it in communication, right? How to go through those stages of, automate, eliminate, delegate, right? How do you go through those in every aspect of your business? And so as an advanced investor, your time is so limited, and even passive assets can take a little bit of time. So you figure out how to make them efficient, how to automate them to be as passive as possible, so that you can continue and focus on the next income streams, right? You get these chickens, you keep them giving you eggs, and you go get the next chickens, right? You should always be focused on growing those. So now that you understand kind of the things around the mindset of an advanced investor, what is that next step of really growing? And we're going to go through a couple key things here of like the stages in growing a direct owned real estate business, owning your direct owned real estate properties. We're not going to get into private equity and ATM machines and self-storage, but my bread and butter is owning today under 50, but I'm building back up after selling a ton of them. But now building this back up, buying more single families, is they're just the most passive way that I feel for my area and my type of business that I want to own. And so the key things in that is finding your markets, right? Finding the markets that either are local enough to you that can give you those returns, or where are these markets outside of your area if you cannot obtain at least I'd call it the 1.5% rule. You've heard 2%, 1%. In today's interest rate environment, I don't feel you can survive on a 1%. You really got to get closer to a 1.5% of rent to price ratio, right? So if a property is costing $120,000, it needs to get a little bit more than $1,200 a month in rent to give you some decent cash flow at today's interest rates. Now, if we can creep back to where everyone would like to get back to, if we can get back to 5, maybe even 6%, then maybe 1% can make a little bit more sense. But where are those markets? Right? If there's none around you, where do you need to go where you can find a good turnkey provider? Right? And that is a big, big deal. If you cannot invest locally, your turnkey provider and your property management company, they are your business. They are your life support. They are everything to you. So before I would start buying properties that look like they fit your model and what your return needs are in those markets, you have to vet out the turnkey provider, the property manager. Do you have family? Do you have friends? Do you have anybody in those markets that can turn you on to the right people? And ideally, you don't go through a turnkey provider because they're taking 7 to 10%. At least 5. Probably that's normally 7 to 10%. So that's out of your pocket. And you want to have boots on the ground in terms of your own direct communication with contractors. So that's where I tell folks, if you can't buy anywhere local to you, who do you know around the country? Different friends, different family, different business connections that are in a market that shows good returns. Connect with them. They're going to know people, right? Connect with them. They're friends, their connections. Somebody's going to know a contractor. Somebody's going to know a realtor, and get connected outside of the turnkey provider, outside of the property manager that's going to be, big fees on these initial rehabs. I heard a horror story a little bit ago of a person who had bought out of their market, and the property manager said, oh, yep, it was going to be a $25,000 rehab, and ended up being 35. And what did that person, you really don't have any defense. You got to get this thing done, and they overlooked things, and now you're stuck with them. So, really understanding those markets where you want to buy, who is there, vetting them all out, understanding the areas. So yes, let's just say my area in Ohio, right, in Akron, Canton. Hey, yeah, you're hearing about all the good returns, and you come here and they talk. Oh yeah, this area is great. You're gonna buy this property on Cole, and because you're talking to a property manager or you're talking to a turnkey provider. And then you find out that Cole Avenue is D-, right? And you were thinking it was a B- area where you were going to get a good tenant quality and you were going to get great rents. And now you own a property in a D area because your property manager kind of misled you. So your own boots on the ground is key to being able to interpret that, it's not just the metro area or the MSA as it's called, like, you understand the exact school system and neighborhood to know that you're buying in that C+, B- like I love, and you don't end up with a D property at C+ level pricing that your all in is. So that's key. So use those websites, find the areas, see who you can connect with locally, and also you want to diversify, right? Dustin, was not as fortunate as me, and he lives in a great area, right, outside of Phoenix, but he can't own rental properties there. It's just, they don't make financial sense. So he has gone out and he didn't put all his eggs in one basket in, one certain city. He's invested all over. He's in Ohio and Texas and Tennessee and all these areas where he can get into. I think he's all in the same type of C+, B- type area, to get the best return for the tenant quality while diversifying across different property managers, different states. But it's what he had to do because he couldn't invest locally. So follow that model around, you don't put all your eggs in one basket because that property manager could go bad, right? You want to be in different states. Make sure to hit different school systems inside those communities so that you're not all in the same school system and could have an issue if that wasn't the right one. But yeah, diversify, get your team, and just continue to study the mass market communications from Redfin, from Zillow, of where are the areas that are increasing in demand that people are moving to, right? To find those areas and maybe get ahead of the curve as fast as you can on getting properties before all the turnkey providers come in and get these prices raised, because you're giving up too much margin if you're buying a turnkey at a 1% ratio. If you are able to find stuff in your local areas like I am, right? I'm doing all the things to grab local properties around, having bird dogs. I use my own tenants as bird dogs, right? I give them big fees, right? $500, $1,000 if they send me a house that I close on. So that's an incentive for all them because they're driving in all the neighborhoods that I want to own. So if you can invest local, or even if you can't, if you have existing tenants out of state, let them know you're a buyer in that area. If it's working out well, hey, guys, send me a for sale by owner sign. And that's what you need to explain to them, because if it's on market, it's not worth it, right? Everybody has eyes on it, but you want the for sale by owner signs. Take a picture of the address, take a picture of the sign, get that over to me. If I buy it, you get $500, $1,000, maybe more if it's that great of a deal. So get driving your neighborhoods, or have your bird dogs driving your neighborhoods. Look for those distressed signs of properties, right? If you're that local, you can be looking for the houses where the yards are not being kept and the siding and gutters are falling off, right? Or these people who might be losing their property to pre-foreclosures. And that's where it gets into these advanced strategies around off-market sourcing of buying the lists or skip tracing once you've already found a distressed property, and sending mailers, right? Those are all great things to get off-market properties. And then you have the auctions. I have had some success at the big auction sites like auction.com, Hubzu, Exome, Sheriff Auctions. A lot of them bid on behalf of the sellers, and maybe they weren't doing that originally back 7-8 years ago, but now they definitely are on Hubzu, auction.com. But on your local sheriff sales, they are not bidding on behalf. They're not allowing that to happen. So that's an area to watch for properties getting either auctioned off due to past due tax liens, or through foreclosure, they're going to a sheriff sale. But that's an opportunity where I've gotten some off market. And then you have all the different websites, but the different forums, the Facebook forums, where all properties are getting wholesaled. And so that is getting a part of all those different Facebook groups. And we talked about it in mine. But yeah, we'll be getting into all those, making posts, meeting with wholesalers, making your own posts in those groups of what your buy box is, to get people coming to you with, oh, I got a house or my neighbor's house, and making sure to offer that commissioned lead as well when you close on a property. Lists is an interesting model. A lot of folks love buying these cold lists. So the pre-foreclosure lists, or the cash sale, estate transfer lists. And, you're getting a cold list, right? It's not a hot lead, but then you got to have either callers or you spend your own time doing that. And we have some experience doing that. And that's a good way to get a completely off market, seller who may have just inherited a house or needs someone to come save them before they lose this house to foreclosure. And, those are good opportunities that not everyone understands. I mean, there is a lot of people that are hitting these wholesalers, but if you can find your niche market, right? Maybe it's a little more rural, and the urban areas are hit pretty hard, but a little more rural. Maybe it's a better area to own it, but find some of those areas and try some lists. Real estate investor groups, that's a big one that we use. They have breakfasts, they have monthly meetups, but especially if you are local, to be hitting your RIA groups and connecting with everyone there, or figuring out how to travel to that town where you want to be owning properties and jump in with that RIA group to try to make some connections there. And once you're finding these properties, right, we go through a session on my podcast on property analysis, right? Knowing what to look for, especially if you're local and you're going through these properties, you have to know what to look for, I like to just take a video of everything on a walkthrough, especially if there's a seller there. You don't want to be trying to keep notes of everything and write down everything and come up with a price right then. I like to take a video of everything, then sit down, understand as I'm walking through this, all the things that I want to notate that need to be built out, right? This has got to be replaced. This has got to be repaired, building out my list to then go back to that potential seller with, hey, here's what my offer could be now that I've summed up all the work and all the materials that need to be done here. And, then it gives you more time to look at ARV, especially if you're really considering flipping it. Then you really have to know your numbers on the rehab, what the ARV would be now that you've gone through it to come up with that final offer for them. So most of what I did through my building up and scaling to over 70 some rentals was empowering. I did these things that I just talked through up till about 20. And then I empowered those that are experts in those areas versus myself, who I would call NVA, non-value added. And so that's where I empowered my contractors to just go through with the agent. So the agent who was bringing me a property when these were on market properties, nope, I don't need to go see it. But my contractor will meet you there. You set that up with him. He'll run through it. He knows how my turnkey rentals need to look. Or if it was a flip, he knows what we do for flips. We'll talk about this a little bit later in the playbook, right? But he knows everything. He knows the price. He'll tell me the price after he's done the walkthrough with her. And then I know what I can put an offer on, right? So we took myself viewing the property out of the equation because I really wasn't value added, right? It's the area I know what I can rent it for. So I really don't need to be involved with what needs to be repaired and what needs to be done. I want to stay out of the repairs, right? He knows how to fix things. He knows what needs to be fixed. I don't want to be telling him what or what not to do. And that was one reason why I kept that specific contractor for probably nearly 80 to 90 rehabs, because I just let him do what he knew he needed to do and I stayed out of his way. And so that's a big thing when you talk about scaling, right? Not getting in people's way, letting them do the work. And there is pre-work to that, right? I went through half a dozen contractors before I found the one, right? I fired guys stole from me, guys just flaked off. And then I finally found the right one. Same thing with agents. I went through agents. I went through, I don't know, probably about the same, probably 4 or 5 different agents until I found 2 that were phenomenal and knew what I was doing, went and looked at properties without me, would pull in the contractor when needed, would tell me what needed to be done. And we got to the point where really the contractor, probably the last 20, 30 we bought, the contractor wasn't even going there with the agent at first. The agent would know how things, my costs pretty much, they figured it all out and would just tell me, and we put the offer in without me seeing it, without the contractor, the agent knew. And out of buying, let's call it upwards towards 90 to 100 single families between rentals and flips, one time did I back out of an earnest money deposit. Because when I went there, it was considerably more work and I would have been all in higher than my return threshold was as a rental. And so I backed out of it. And that was early on with that specific agent who would become kind of my number 2 agent. But that was probably the 3rd house I bought with him. And he felt bad. And it wasn't his fault. I told him to put the offer in. I think I was out of town. But the key was, okay, yes. So I did lose, I don't know, I lost $500, maybe $1,000 in earnest money. But how much time I saved over, I couldn't even tell you how many houses by not going to them was worth losing that little money in earnest money, because I saved so much time by empowering the right agents. And then he learned from that of, oh, okay, yep, these things. Maybe he missed some things or didn't know my costs or just assumed we would leave some things. So it was good learning for both of us. It cost me a little bit of money, but it didn't change. I didn't say, oh, I have to go look at every house from now on. Nope, it was just a learning lesson. And that's how you have to look at when you're trying to build something big. You're going to have some learning lessons. And if it's a $500 or $1,000 learning lesson, it's all relative, yes, to everyone's business size, but that was a cheap lesson. I've learned some much, much, much larger lessons than that on the private side and in promissory notes. So that was a cheap lesson. Let's talk about funding, right? Advanced investors know that cash is king, right? That, you have to come in cash. You can't come in with appraisals. You can't come in with inspections because you're going to lose to the advanced folks that are coming in with those things. Cash, no appraisal, no inspection. So you got to get there, once. And if you can't get there with your own cash, who do you know privately, right? Private money is your next step. And those are anyone in the family who has self-directed IRA or anything like that, and they want to lend and make a pure interest. That is really the play, is finding folks who have IRA money that they can't, you don't want to invest your self-directed IRA or IRAs in real estate because you get none of the benefits, right? You don't get depreciation, you don't get deductions, but lending it is the key for them because they'll get their fixed interest rate. They won't be paying tax on a 1099 INT because it's in a self-directed IRA. It's all deferred. So finding anybody like that that's willing to loan you and get a fixed, 8%, that'd be great, right? If you can get that 8% money and be giving cash offers, that is key. After private money, you go to some of these hard money lenders. And like myself, I lend hard money. I'm at 15%. And, now that person has cash and can go make cash offers on those homes. And if you can't find somebody like that, you got to go to the institutional hard money, which, yes, they're going to require appraisals. They're all going to require some type of an inspection as well. So those really, I don't know. I've never been a seller looking at a hard money, institutional hard money offer. But, I think a seller is definitely not going to be as excited as cash. And I don't even know how they would compare those versus conventional mortgages. But yeah, you got to get to cash. And, where it really started moving quickly for me is when, I had enough to buy like 4 to 5 houses in cash. So then I could do my big portfolio burring a group of houses each time. And I would have a group going through a burr cycle while I'm buying again for the next burr cycle. And that just simplifies kind of getting together with the bank. But taking those and doing that whole burr as a package instead of one-off burring. But now when you have that cash and you're buying those, now you're working with community banks. You're not taking a package, or you're not taking your homes normally to Huntington and Chase and Wells Fargo. The community banks are much easier to work with. So these are your, 3 to 8 or 10 bank branches. We have probably a dozen of them here in Northeast Ohio that are good in the real estate market. And you just want to be getting the quotes from a whole bunch of them. You got to compare their fees, right? What are their originations? What are their appraisal fees? All their different fees. You got to understand amortization and rates. You're going to see different rate formulas across all of them, which is crazy. And you'll see different amortization. Most of them are probably going to offer like a 20-year amortization with a 3 or 5 year adjustments every 3 or 5. But some of them you might see like a 25-year fixed, or you might see some shorter terms if you want like a 15 fix. I always go for a 20-year on a 5-year adjustment unless I really like the rates or I really think they're going to go down, and then I'll go to a 3. But yeah, you want to get a couple different quotes from those lenders so that you know who you're ready to go with once you're ready. And then seasoning. Seasoning is a big thing that has slowed all us real estate investors down that do the burr process. We used to be able to buy a property, rehab it, rent it, and then take it to the bank in 3 months, 4 months, however long that process took. Or when I was doing packages, maybe some of them I've owned for 6 months and some of them just 2 because I was buying a property or 2 every month. But now they have really put a halt to that because most lenders have gone to 12 months of seasoning, meaning they want to have seen you own that property and be renting it for 12 months. Now, when I take my package, and especially since I'm very close with this bank and the COO, I'm actually helping him to invest. They are fine with some of the properties that were purchased towards the end of that package. So, in the burr package I did for my properties last year, some of those properties were purchased in January. Some of them were purchased in October, November, and they were fine to purchase to refi that whole package in February of this year. But seasoning's a big one because that will really slow you down. So see who at least, at a minimum of 12, maybe you can find somebody that'll do a 6-month seasoning, but get all those details so you know who you want to work with. All right, automating, right? You know your mindset, your markets, how you're getting these properties and who you're working with to rehab them. Now automating this process. So for rehabs, I have a playbook. Right, I created a playbook of these are the paint colors, these are the cabinets, these are the counters, this is the flooring. And I did this with the contractor so that everything is standardized. right? The same flooring, the same paint, everything. And this is all products at Home Depot, where we use our great Home Depot Pro account. So that's something else you got to always, everybody should be working on, is getting big discounts. Once you start doing some volume as an advanced investor, is making sure you're getting 15% at Home Depot. Lowe's can give you a little bit more. Our experience locally with Lowe's delivery is not good at all. So that's why we end up sticking with Home Depot on a little less of a discount, but lights out, perfect deliveries all the time. If not, there's somebody's running that back. They're running out there the same day to get it corrected. So have your playbook, right? Here's what we do. Here's how we do it. We get rid of all ceiling fans and put domes up there because we don't want ceiling fans with tenants. And we get rid of garbage disposals because, those are just going to be a problem with tenants. And we get rid of screen doors and, all the things you want to get rid of as an advanced investor that just get you maintenance calls that don't provide a lot of value for the tenant, or that you're just not willing to have it in there because of the maintenance it involves. And then how it gets standardized so that, we already have the paint, we have the flooring, we have the faucets, we have all those things because it's all the standardized stuff. And that's something you could regularly refresh through working with your pro account person at Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, when they get some different things in that are now a better value than what you were buying. These counters, these faucets, these shower heads, right? To just, always be working to improve your pricing and quality of materials. Let's talk about replacing versus refinishing, right? This is another big one. If you're looking to scale, and with most of us, we don't have unlimited contractor capacity, right? We don't. There's not an unlimited amount of good value contractors out there. And so something that I kind of came across as I was working with my best contractor on all these rehabs is I needed him to move quick, right? I needed him to move quick because we were buying so many houses and he was the guy. And it kind of hit me as I would talk through things with him. So let's just say there's a bathroom and it's got layers of wallpaper and it's all flaking off and it's really bad. Well, yeah, the cheapest material route would be to throw some labor at that, scraping off the wallpaper, peeling it back, patching, painting. We're going to have, let's call it, we might have 15 hours of labor peeling wallpaper out of this big bathroom and, around trim and this and patching walls and painting. Or we can spend maybe 5 to 6 hours putting up brand new white beadboard. Completely changed the look of that bathroom. Right now, it's a brand new, a beadboarded bathroom in a rental. That looks crazy. But now, what'd you do? You allowed your contractor to spend a third of the time, move on to the next projects. And you went and spent $300 or $400 on materials, maybe $500, $600, but you saved $250 in labor. So, it cost you $150, $200 more. But how much nicer now does that bathroom look? And the walls are more protected now with beadboard than drywall. So I always wanted to think about things in that aspect with my contractors of where do we spend a little bit more in material, but change the look and make everything look newer or brand new to a tenant. And we also saved money and labor time to get the contractor, to get the workers on to all the next activities, right? I'd much rather spend my budget on new materials than on labor to refinish older things, right? New saves labor, saves time, add value, looks better, rents higher. Empowering, we talked about that a little bit, empowering the realtors, empowering the contractors. When I was flipping, I empowered the realtor for all the decisions on materials. I wasn't going to risk a conversation of why a property didn't sell at the price the realtor told me we would sell it at because of material decisions that I made or the contractor made. So no, I held the realtor accountable. You're telling me this is going to be a great flip and it's going to sell at $240,000. So we're going to buy it for $140,000. All right, here's the budget we're agreeing on. You're going to pick the counters, you're going to pick the paint, you're going to pick trim colors, you're going to pick faucets, shower heads, you're going to pick all these things. Okay, are we doing this beadboard? Are we doing this type of wall? And that worked really well. They actually did enjoy some of that and they enjoyed kind of creating these houses. And so it saved me time, saved an issue of, this is why it didn't sell. So now if it doesn't sell at that price point, who can I hold accountable? right? The realtor, you're the one that told me this house was going to go well. You're the one that picked out all the materials. And nope, we had to do concessions and sell it $5,000, $7,500 cheaper. Then that's really on them. You can't say it was on us. And for finding these folks, right? For finding realtors, it's lots of conversations, lots of calls. You can also try, I see lots of folks make a post all the time. Hey, I need a investor friendly real estate agent. Well, do you think I was ever going to give mine up when I would see that post? So, you're rarely going to get somebody who's going to give up their great investor focused real estate agent because they don't want them working with other investors and taking properties to them. So I always find that kind of funny when I see that type of post. So you gotta do your own groundwork. You gotta go look at metrics around who's selling lots of properties that are in those type of price ranges in the areas you're looking. Who's representing the properties that you're looking to buy, what type of agencies, what type of agents, and then just, making phone calls, talking to them, looking at their history. I think there's a lot of websites that'll show their history of sales and seeing if those are the types of properties that make sense for what you're looking for. Finding contractors, right? I always hear just sitting at Home Depot at 7 to 8 a.m. Who are all the contractors coming in there early to get their day going? Right. So they're at the job site by 8 a.m. with their materials. You don't want the contractors that are just getting in there to start their day at 9 a.m. to get to the job site at 10. So that's a way is to see all the trucks pulling into that pro department and going in and chatting them up. What kind of things do they do? You can also make posts in those different Facebook groups. Hey, looking for contractors, and you'll get a ton that'll comment. And have calls, show me examples. Do you have a website? Can you give me some customers? That's a key. Give me some recent customers. Give me some investors that you've done rehabs for. That's who you're looking for. It's not the person who's working in the owner occupant home doing the $20,000 bathroom renovation. That's not it. You need the person who's working with, maybe they're working with bank foreclosures, right? They work for banks, or working for lots of investors. So that's how you want to make those calls and try to connect with those guys through the different Home Depot, Lowe's, all the different stores. Finding tenants. I've always used, apartments.com and Zillow to get listings, to get in tenants. That's the biggest way I think that the tenants are looking. Otherwise, if you're just dealing with your property manager, I would be asking to see the applications. I've heard just bad stories from a couple folks recently who just leave everything to their property manager and then would get a very crappy tenant that pay a month or two and then boom, they're 3 months out. So I would definitely be asking for all the applications if you are not doing this yourself or working closely with your property manager and they're far, I would have them send them all to you. Also, check out your property manager. Background check your property management company just like you would background check a tenant, right? Check their Google reviews, check the court dockets. Have they been sued at all? Have they have any claims against them for anything of mismanagement? How often are they in eviction court? And that's what you want to find out to see, are they the type of property manager that you want to work with, right? For background checking my tenants, I like TransUnion Smart Move, but I also use the local court websites because I have seen some issues where things have not carried over to the court, to the TransUnion Smart Move or the big Zillow checks. So always check the local court websites for where your property is, where these people are currently living. And call references. That's something I've also learned a lot is you'll see a lot of fake references, and it's pretty easy as long as you know some information on where they live today to weed out a fake reference. But if you have any concerns, call up on their references and ask them some deep questions that only that property owner would know of this address they say they're currently living at. All right, so mindset. You found your properties, you've got your team, you're finding tenants, you're getting your rehabs done. All right, what are the other things to make this portfolio efficient to scale this thing to 100? Right, your property taxes. File in your border revision complaints to get your property taxes lowered, or rather to get your value lowered, which then lowers your property taxes. I've done that on nearly every property I've ever purchased that was a buy and hold. You can't do that on a flip. But on all your buy and holds, you should be reviewing what the county values your property at versus what you bought it at and what repairs need to be done. That can be significant. I was getting checks. It's a check per property. So I was getting a dozen to 17 checks a year by filing Board of Revision complaints on every property I bought. And those checks were upwards of $15,000, $20,000. And you're also lowering your property taxes for each of those properties by, in my case, these property taxes were getting lowered from, let's call it $1,800 to $2,200 a year down to $1,000 to $1,200 a year. So I'm saving $1,000 a year for at least the next 3 years on that property, plus what they just refunded me for past due. And that's something you got to look at it. You have to file it the first quarter of the year. We have a podcast episode kind of talking more in detail about how you do that, but get your property taxes lower, get your insurance lower. Now, insurance is a very custom thing. Everybody has their own opinions and you want your own security insurance. So I'm not going to really consult everyone on insurance, but how I do it and how I recommend anybody who's going to 100 properties to do it is to be with a surplus lines carrier like International Excess Brokers, 80 intermediaries is another one. I myself am with Berkshire Hathaway, right? The big Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett. And yes, they are an old company and their practices and their processes are still pretty old and paper-based, but they have a great cash value, stated value like the other surplus carriers do. But it makes my insurance premiums about 40 to 50% of what they would be on a standard replacement policy with an Allstate, a Grange, something like that. And I'm not willing to pay another $35,000 a year to hold a lottery ticket, right? Because if you have a rental property, let's just talk about numbers in Ohio, right? If you have a rental property that you have $100,000 in and you're insured with Allstate or State Farm, Nationwide, any of these, and you're paying $800 a year for $250,000, $275,000 in rebuild coverage. Yeah, that's what you're doing. You're paying 2.5, 3 times more to hold a lottery ticket in case that property burns down. I'm not willing, the only thing that's guaranteed with insurance is that you're paying that premium every year. And so I would much rather save $30,000 a year, right? More than 50% in my policy's case, to just be covered for everything I have into that property or my debt service plus enough to tear it down and fill in the hole. Yes, I will lose a cash flowing asset, but I'm not willing to pay that much more every year to hope that I'm holding a lottery ticket. So insurance is a big one. Taxes, those are your two biggest things that I don't want to say are fixed, but they're the ones that are there. They're large and they are mostly fixed, and you just got to fight them. You got to fight them. You got to work them to get those low to what, an insurance, very custom case, but, just decide what risk or what you're looking for and get those premiums as low as you can. I have $5,000 deductible on my policy because I'm never going to make a small claim. I'm not going to risk my ability to get insurance and my premiums by making a little $2,000, $4,000 claim. If I'm making a claim, it's because the whole house burned up, basically. Another thing on automation and scaling and efficiency is I love rent to own. I love getting an owner occupant mentality in my home. I really don't care about them buying it. I am never going to be predatory. I give the easiest open-ended rent to own program there is compared to anyone else I know. But I'm not doing this because I have to or want to sell the home. I'm doing this to put an owner-occupant type mentality in my home that becomes responsible for if they clog the drains or they don't change the furnace filter and the furnace motor blows or they don't clean their gutters and there's water coming into the foundation. They're responsible for all these things. And it just breeds a different type of care in the home. And if they buy it in a year or two, great. If they are still there 9 years down the road, it doesn't matter to me. There's a lot of different ways to do them, but I do it because I just want a different type of character, right? Just if you're going to do it, don't do it predatory. A lot of these companies do it really, really predatory. They give these folks 12 months, 24 months, and they know going into it, they only have a 550, 500 credit score. So they know they're not going to be successful and they're taking huge down payments, which I don't. So just do it right. Do it for the option for that tenant to, get out of this, constant tenant life and give them as much time as they want because they're taking care of the property, right? Reset their purchase price, reset the rents, but just keep them in the property. Investor protection with that, yes. So I do protect myself by changing that purchase price every 4 years, and then their rent does change every 2 years. So you still are protected against inflation, and they're getting a small credit. This isn't a land contract. This is a purchase option. So that gives me a lot more automation and efficiency to continue growing. That's about the keys on how I grew fast, right? My mindset, finding realtors, finding contractors, my funding through doing the BRRRR process, putting in tenants, making it efficient and automated with rent to own, doing the checks, background checks to make sure I got the right people in my system between the contractors, the tenants, vetting out the realtors, empowering, automating. Those are all really the meaty things that got me to where I'm at today. On top of Grant Cardone, you love him or hate him, but those books, 10X and Be Obsessed or Be Average, were the right books at the right time as these people and these systems were all coming in place. And those books are about never taking your foot off the gas. And so once you have your markets, your people, your financing, your efficiency, you just got to go, right? If you've got all those things in place, just go, go, go. And don't slow down because, oh yeah, I've got a turnover here or having a baby. Because when you do that, right? If I would have slowed down when we were having our kids, when I was having evictions and turnovers, by the time you get ready to start back up, you've lost months and months and months. And in real estate, you can't be like, yep, I'm going to start back. I'm buying a house tomorrow. No, you need time. So you have to keep that funnel going, or else you'll come to a point where there's nothing going on and you're going to be losing ground to your competition, or your realtor is not going to be thinking about you because you stopped buying. So she's going to be sending them to other investors. So you got to keep at the front of mind, buying, of selling, and with your contractors, with your realtors, just keep going, that they know you're the guy that wants to keep going. Right? Guy or gal. Sorry, ladies. So yeah, everybody just keep going on these plans. You don't want to take your foot off the gas, because if you do, right, by the time those things work themselves out, the kids, the evictions, all these things, right, months have gone by. And by the time you get ready to start going again, those people really aren't thinking about you anymore. The realtors, the contractors, anybody who was bringing you properties. If you had people bird dogging and you turned them down for a couple months, they've forgotten about you. And now you got to restart all those relationships again and restart the gas and try and restart the funnel. So guys, just keep going. You always got to keep buying, keep pushing. If you want to get to 100, this isn't something by occasionally starting and stopping. You build your system, build your areas, build all these things, and then keep buying and get that Cardone, be obsessed or be average mentality, and just keep going. So, all right. Well, hey, I hope all the Master Passive Income folks enjoyed this. You can find me on the Passive Income Life podcast, part of the Master Passive Income Podcast Network. You can also find me at realzachzimmer.com. That's RealZachZimmer. So yeah, reach out. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you didn't like. Let me know what you think I missed. I'm always looking for input from you guys. So yeah, just send me a message through there if you ever want to connect. And yeah, excited that Dustin is releasing me to you guys. You can find me over on Passive Income Life. And yeah, we'll continue on tactics, tips, the mindset to get you guys to all be 7-figure investors. Well, thanks, and we'll see you next week.